Coming up on Not the End, NDE.
In reality, that is but like an aperture of a camera. And an aperture of a camera controls the amount of light that's let in and how much of what is in front of the lens can be seen. So I was shown that there really aren't divisions between dimensions. It's just like when our awareness is broader and we see more light is what guides the way.
Many have died and returned to tell of their near-death experiences. Their incredible stories reveal to the living that this is not the end.
Hello, I've sat here and thought, where do I start? And I guess the place to start is in the beginning. As a soul, I came into this world having made the choices of the family I would be born into, the place I would be born into, many of the events that I would experience during my time here, and the unfolding of the awareness of who I am as a soul. Now, the journey began pretty rough. I was born into a family that already had a lot of turbulence, a lot of unrest, a lot of discord, a lot of violence emotionally, physically, psychologically, and then came me. And in the first 6 months of my time here, many events occurred. Some I have memories of, some I don't. But the first significant memory that I have was as a 6-month-old infant, being laid in a crib, there with a bottle, and suddenly realizing there was no one there. That whomever was there to be caregiver, caretaker, parent, mother, father, there was no one there. And sure enough, later in my life, I learned that that's exactly what had happened. That my father had left, that my mother had left psychologically, and then on that day, she had physically left. She had gone from the apartment where we lived and left me there. And in that moment, in the mind, I began to realize that that was the beginning of my journey, learning how to survive in this world. Many events happened after that to take me to a place of being adopted. And I ended up being adopted by family members. It was literally as if I'd gone from the frying pan into the fire, because that same disturbing state of being that my mother displayed was taught to her by others who raised her and who created that mental state to have her do the things that she did. Fast forward 39 years, I am in a place where I just can't figure anything else out. I can't find a way forward, and I have no idea what to do with myself. So I quit my job. My job, I owned my own salon, and I sold all of my equipment and sold everything from the salon and closed the business and decided to go to Hawaii. A new adventure. Well, that adventure ended up leaving me homeless. Not a bad place to be homeless. Not that you want to be, but left me homeless there in Hawaii. And through the experiences I was having, my body began to break down, because some years earlier, due to what I call the lost puppy syndrome of my life, I had been what my mind would tell me was abandoned by my own mother. So I was like a lost puppy in the world. I'd gotten involved with people and situations and contracted HIV. And at the time of my journey to Hawaii, I had stopped taking medication. Therefore, my body started to break down. And I ignored it, believing in my mind that I was more powerful than any disease, because from childhood, I have always held an awareness of who I am as a soul. Not all of the pieces and parts as a child, but aware that there was a soul there. It was the only way that I survived through the years of mental, emotional, and psychological abuse, and just the violence and the discord that was the home that I lived in. So I was in Hawaii, I had stopped taking medication, and of course my immune system began to break down, and I started to get sick. At this time, again, as I said, I was homeless, and I just walked the streets doing what I could to eat, if I ate. And I had previously been working at a youth hostel, and the owner of the hostel saw me and said, "You look pretty rough. Why don't you come and stay?" And I told him I had no money, I had no way to pay for staying there. He said, "That's fine." He says, "You can do whatever you are able to do, and you'll have a place to stay at least and not be on the street any longer." That was a blessing, and things evolved. I kept getting sicker and sicker. As the immune system breaks down, you become vulnerable to every kind of bacterial infection, viral infection, fungal infection, and others. I got to where I weighed about 145 pounds, and I am a 6'4" man, and I weigh 200 pounds, 205 at my normal weight. And a friend of mine that was working at the youth hostel said, "James, if you're not going to take medication any longer, please try something else, anything else." And she directed me to a friend of hers who was an amazing acupuncturist, intuitive, not just the acupuncture method and the science of it, but very intuitive. And I had already reached a physical point that I don't have even much memory of those days surrounding my first transitional experience. So I agreed. I went on and went to the place where he had his office, and it's a beautiful, quiet place amongst a beautiful setting of Hilo, Hawaii, where I lived. So I don't even know how I got up the stairs. At that point, I was very, very, very anemic, and I got up the stairs, went in the doorway, and he looked at me as if I was already gone. Put his arm around my shoulder and he said, "Come on in, let's see what we can see, and let's see what we can do." He laid me down on the bed, and immediately he began to express what he was going to do, what he was going to look for, and let's see what's revealed. And it was as if I could hear his voice and feel his presence becoming more distant and more distant and more distant, though physically we were there at the same distance. But I felt a vibrational distance, a distance of the alignment from him. And at that point, it was as if I began to fade. And in that fading, a stillness came, a stillness and a levity that I had never experienced before in this physical realm and in this journey. And that levity led to a warmth. By that time, I was out, and I began to feel myself embraced in a way that I had never felt before. Embraced by something that felt immense, felt warmth. I felt protected, and I felt loved from what I think was probably the very first time in my life. And then all of a sudden I could feel movement from this immenseness, this movement It was as if there was a push to move me through something. And in that point, out I came into the open ocean, where during the months before I was sick, I had been swimming with dolphins and whales. And there I could see myself, my infant self, there in the water, with the biggest smile and the biggest warmth and protectiveness and love and this maternal presence. And then in my vision here from the side came by me the mother whale. I was experiencing a transitional alignment with my soul, seeing myself reborn through the belly of a mother whale. And there I was, loved by a mother that I had never presenced before until that point. And immediately, all of the old veil of fears and unworthiness and all of the things that had transpired, beliefs that I had created in my mind due to that experience at 6 months old, were gone. And there, a few minutes later, it was as if another one was born, and there I had a little brother, a baby whale. I myself could see myself in the physical form of an infant child, a human child, tow-headed like I was at birth. And there was this immense feeling of maternal protection and love and care and freedom. And in that, all that I had carried with me up until that point was released. All of the fears again and the ideas of how could she have left? Could she not hear me crying out? All of it left. I'd carried that like a weight on my back my entire life. I guess I had reached the point that I had reached to become that ill because I couldn't find a way out of that. And this experience allowed me to release all of that was in my mind and see the reality of who I am as a soul due to that mother's love in that moment. Well, in that experience came in the practitioner, touching me on the shoulder, bringing me back to my awareness of this physical realm, and said, I've done all I can do today. Let's let you go back to the hostel. And I did. I continued through the days and a few weeks, and my condition just continued to get worse. And as it got worse, my friend Lisa, who was also a nurse, said, I'm going to take you home. I'm going to take you somewhere where you can have some peace, where you can be with yourself and see what happens. After a few days spending time in her house, she could see that my condition was just continuing to get worse, as if the transitional experience already wasn't as deeply as we could go. It did get worse. Physically, I got worse. And she said to me, James, we have to take you to the hospital. She says, I cannot take care of you here, not in your condition. I don't have equipment. I don't have anything here. And so I agreed. And at that moment, I surrendered my life, whatever would happen. And that's when the magic started. The moment that I surrendered and became aware that I didn't need to control, that I could let go. So I went into the hospital. She took me there. And we went into the emergency and said, got a very sick person here. We need to find out what's going on. And of course, then was the whole battery of tests, and they tested me for everything and wanted to try and give me this contrast to do, I guess, CAT scans or some kind of scans on my body. And of course, I was so sick they wanted me to drink it, and I couldn't keep it down. And so a few days went by, and I was put in an isolation unit where no one could come in unless they had hazmat suits on or something like that, kind of like we had during COVID. And a few doctors came in with their clipboards at one point. And I remember the doctor coming beside the bed and saying, Mr. Newman. And I was already in that distant place where I felt like I was distant from the physical world. He said, Mr. Newman, we believe you have leukemia. because my bone marrow had shut down. And come to find out, 5 months later, I had a disease that was called MAC. M-A-C. M word this long, A word this long, and C word this long. It is a condition that attacks 3 parts of the body, only once at a time, but it will attack the brain, attack the lungs, or attack the bone marrow. And the MAC had attacked my bone marrow and stopped it from functioning. That's where the anemia came from. He said, "Mr. Newman, we believe you have leukemia, but there are no cancer markers in any of your tests and your blood work, so we need to keep testing." Time went on, and of course, things kept getting worse until finally, I was constantly distant from the physical world. And there, lying in my bed, I transitioned. I left the realm of the mind and the 5 physical senses and the awareness of the physical world, and went into full awareness of myself as a soul. I didn't leave my body because the body still had life in it. Therefore, it meant that the soul was still in the body, because the soul is the life-giving force that gives life to this miraculous form that was created for us to come into and experience this world. But there I was, suddenly, no longer in the hospital room, and in what I felt like was a train station. It didn't look like a train station because everything was blue. The blue of the ocean that I had been swimming in for the prior months before I was too sick to get in. I could see forms, just the outline of what we would imagine a human form to be, and that blue was a little bit lighter. And all of this was just a place of pure magnificence, a place of pure love, a place of awareness of all things. And because I was no longer in the mind, there was no fear, no beliefs, nothing that kept me imprisoned, as our minds can. I was free. Yet there was an awareness that I was waiting for my train, whatever that train would be, to go on to the next place that I was to go to. And little did I know that it was a next aspect of my soul was awaiting to return to my physical form in the awareness of the mind. So before I transitioned back into the mind, I was shown a lot of things. I was shown how this universe worked, functions of the universe, the paradigms of the universe, and all of it in synthesis, except humans, except those who deem themselves humans and not the pure light of the soul that they are, that I would be a messenger. So I was shown how this transitional, transformational, ever fluid continuum occurs, that we are all the light of source itself. Next phase of the continuum is the soul. Then earth, because this physical form that the soul gives life to is an element of this physical world. And then the heart space, and the heart space being the place of expression of the soul, where the mind is the place of expression of the egoic self, where all of the fears, the instabilities, the discordant beliefs reside, the duality, the illusion of duality, that things are separated or divided. And we see that division in our world today. I was shown so many aspects of how this universe functions, as if it were a sphere, because that is the reality of it. And then I was shown layers beyond this physical universe, layers of awareness that some would call dimensions, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. I've heard as high as 15th dimension, when in reality that is but like an aperture of a camera. And an aperture of a camera controls the amount of light that's let in and how much of what is in front of the lens can be seen. So I was shown that there really aren't divisions between dimensions. It's just like when our awareness is broader and we see more light is what guides the way. We see more pieces of the puzzle. to the picture of all that is. And in this, we are aware of far more than the mind could ever conceive. And I kept being shown different aspects of how this worked. And while I was being shown these things, I could still see, it was like people were walking by, others were coming to their trains and going, and all of this, and many other things, all being experienced simultaneously. And in the background of all of this was this voice that kept saying, remember how this feels. What do you feel in the presence of all of this awareness? Because that is where the vibrational alignment is. So I remembered how it felt. And until today, every time I paint a painting that my soul is telling a story of wisdom as a messenger, I return to that same state of being. So more was shown to me, more was revealed to me, and the beautiful thing that I was shown during that time was that it all resides within us, each and every one of us. Every soul that is here giving life to a physical form, whether it's this form, whether it's the form of a dog, of a bird, of the dolphin, of the whale, of anything that flies and swims and moves and crawls in the earth, all has a soul that is giving life to its form, to be a piece of the puzzle that is the synthesis of all that is. We are an element of the whole of all that is, a golden thread of light sewn through all things, until the mind decides to cut and divide. Divide by gender, divide by race, divide by religion and politics, and all these divisions, cut. Language, sometimes language divides, all illusional divisions. I was shown all of this. And then I could feel myself as if I was getting up off the bench, the seat, the chair where I was seated. And I knew it was time to come back to this physical form, to the awareness of it in the mind. Because I didn't leave the physical form, I simply left the mind, and the awareness shifted into that of the perspective of the soul. And so that we're clear, the soul holds awareness of all that is, like a light in the center of a universe, reflecting out in every direction to infinity, beyond that universe. When I left that awareness and returned to my mind, I had been placed in a bed with a tarp and was having ice thrown all over me and wakened up by ice and water and ice. And I come back into my physical form and I'm like, what's going on? But I said it probably very angrily because I didn't know. I remember putting my hand up and there was this big kahuna guy, this big nurse that I guess had probably carried me over into this bed where the water was being put, and they asked me to calm down and things like that. And I did. And in that moment, it was as if I was still, that thread was still intact. The thread of awareness was still intact. And for myself, it is still till today. Because as I was being told to remember how it felt, every time that I paint something, I return to that feeling of that awareness. And in that moment, I looked around at the people in the room, the nurses and doctors and whoever was there. And it was as if I could see that form that I spoke about, as if I could see the vibrational aspect of them. And I could feel that every one of them didn't want me to transition. What most people would use the word, didn't want me to die. And I could feel that their intentions were good. In my life, due to my own beliefs, I had attracted many people in my life that their intentions for me weren't good. And for the first time, there again, I felt this relief and this release of old things. I was kept in the hospital then for what I have to imagine was another few weeks. And I was told that there was a social worker that was looking through my history, my own life and things, and that I would have to be leaving the hospital. I'm like, okay, I didn't understand totally what that meant. Well, a few days later, the social worker came back and said, "We have contacted your biological mother." And in a moment, I felt that fear again that I felt all through my life. But then there was that voice that said, "Remember how this felt, what I had just experienced." And I said, okay. And she said, "Well, we are going to prepare you to leave the hospital and you're going to go and stay with her." And at that point, I realized that I don't know if they felt I would make it. They didn't know if I would survive. So they had to find what they call the next of kin, I guess. And they contacted her, and I immediately said, "I don't know her. I've never lived with her. I have met her as a young adult and spent different days and times with her. She came to the house where I lived as a child around Christmas time, the first time, and just bits, little things here and there, but I'd never lived with her and never experienced anything of her life. And I didn't even know where she lived. And so it came time for me to leave the hospital, and I stayed a few days at this social worker's home. And then they put me on a plane to South Florida. And I remember feeling kind of happy about that. It's like, well, I'm leaving Hawaii where I love this tropical environment. At least I'm going to another one of those. Little did I know I would be going to my biological mother's home to revisit 9 months of gestation in this rebirth. And I got to experience the same biological mother that I experienced as an infant. Nothing had changed. She had not evolved. She had not changed her point of view towards my person, myself. And I laid sick in a bed for the next 5 months, fending for myself, just like I had done when I was an infant. But I saw the whole experience through different eyes. I saw the experience through the eyes of my soul, and then realized we were never meant to come here and experience the events of our lives as trauma or grief or anger or shame or guilt or resentment or any of the things that the mind would have us believe. We were chosen to come here. We chose, along with Source itself, to come here, experience the events of our lives, and see the wisdom in them. And today, I hold an awareness for my biological mother, just as as a soul that chose to come in and experience different things, that we made an agreement for her to be that mother, for me to be that child, that son, and experience exactly what I experienced so that I could see the wisdom in it. So today I know that she walked away from me at 6 months old so that I could remember who I was as a soul, so that I could be here today and tell the story that I tell here in this video and in the work that I do with folks, allowing them to let go of all of the beliefs of the mind that imprison them and come into a place of harmony and peace and freedom and elation with the reality of who they are. Let go of that weight, free themselves of ailments, because ailments come through the mind, due to the beliefs that we hold. My belief as a child was, oh my gosh, I'm so ashamed. Shame and guilt of who I must be. What must I be that a mother would walk away and just leave me there? What must I have done? And just on and on these things. And I realized today, it's like, hold on, I was 6 months old. there was nothing for me to do. Even the mind realizing that, and then the soul stepping in and saying, yes, you chose to experience that and the many other events of your young life so that you could come through, have this experience of transition out of the mind into the awareness of the soul, while the soul was still giving life to this body, and then return to the awareness of the mind in the physical world and experience the events holding the wisdom that you now hold. Those are my transitional experiences. What I am aware of now is so much greater even than those moments. I do work with folks, both in group and one-on-one, releasing, guiding people to finding the beauty, the brilliance, and the magnificence that resides in them, so that they, through free will, can choose to release what no longer serves them. Because just as you cannot find a healing for breast cancer by having breast cancer month and talking about breast cancer, you cannot heal and release and remove yourself from trauma, grief, guilt, shame by focusing on the illusion that they are and working there. We can, as a person who I was working with once said, my gosh, this feels like a fast track. You're facing the feeling that you're feeling, then choosing to turn the coin to the other side and see the reality of it. Not see the mind-based perspective of what took place, but seeing the reality that I came here to experience that because for me started at 6 months old by realizing that my biological mother must be an incredible soul to agree to come in and put a child in this world and walk away from it. Those of you who are watching this who are mothers, can you imagine yourself doing that? So today, I hold an honor for her. I hold a compassion for her because she has not awakened to that aspect of things. She still dwells in the same psychological state that she dwelled in then. But in myself, I hold the healing energy of love for her. Though we do not communicate, we do not participate in each other's lives in any way, I hold that awareness of the beauty of everything that she did so that I could be the person that I am today. Right now, in this world where there is so much chaos and so much illusion, so much distraction from the reality of who we are, and I can tell the stories and share the awareness of who we are. My name is James Newman, and I am a soul of pure light, here as an artist, in script, in image, and in speech. Sodatar batikat naru suturum niana rana, mangak eranta suturum nir it oro suturum niam gara vorana, maniak erant o suturum ti kiranandiam or satiara, sad eran, sat urum kiranandia. As my soul expresses itself, it's like the river. And it isn't a language. It is beyond the limits of words and definitions and sentence structures. Because like the river is transformative, the river continues to receive water from the rain and the flow of springs and tributaries and other things, just as the soul continues to receive wisdom from both the collective and the individual experiences of our journeys. I will say this again, we were never meant to come here and experience the illusions that keep us imprisoned and keep the weight on us. The intention for us was to come here and gather wisdom, each in our own way, each in our own experiences, each in our own dynamics, family, place of birth, if there is religion or other things, all of those things. meant to come here and experience them, to find the wisdom, to receive the wisdom instilled in every event of our lives. And that means even some of the violence that we see going on today. Every soul agreed to come in and play a role so that we could ascend and return to the synthesis that is of all things. Because everything in this world, the forest, the trees, the land itself, the water, the mountains, the air, it all exists in a synthesis. And that's why we know this by when we go out into nature where humans haven't been, or at least haven't altered it very much, that there is a harmony there and a peace there. I don't know anyone that can't go out and take a hike out into a forest and not feel a greater levity. That is due to that synthesis. None of this, but all of this. Due to that awareness of itself, every element on this earth, other than those who deem themselves human, everything exists in this synthesis, in this unification of elements to form a whole, in all of its magnificence and all of its beauty. So I want to share really quickly the work that I do, aside from the artwork and the script. And the script comes in pages like in this book that I know as the Book of Wisdom. This page came through as a blueprint for a city of light and water. I also receive letters from home. This is a letter, a message from my soul to myself. And in the work that I do, one of the modalities is a person can contact me and say, I would like a letter from home. I would like to hold a greater awareness of who I am. And in that, I can receive a letter because I remember how it feels to be in that state of the soul. And in the state of the soul, all things are interconnected. They're sewn with a thread of golden light. A direct line, if you will, to one another. So it's very easy for someone to contact me. And just like I mentioned, as I was in the hospital, I could see the physical form, but I could also see that auric outline vibrationally. And I have always remembered how it felt to be in that state. So I can speak with someone and let them talk about whatever it is that they wish to express to me. And it literally is as if their soul will come and pull up a chair beside me and begin to tell me a story. And that story can be told in a letter from home, in a soul painting, this size, but a unique image that tells the story to enlighten and broaden that aperture of awareness to that person of who they really are. And the other service that I offer is something called a synthesis guidance system reading. And the synthesis guidance system was shared with me by star beings. I know many people talk about, oh, the archangel came, and this came, and that came, and those are all magnificent presences. But myself, I seem to be more connected with the star beings, the peoples of this universe that are from beyond this planet and that come and visit. And so I was shared with a painting that when I finished it, I thought, well, that looks like a game board. And because I had other work to do, I just went on and didn't give myself a lot of time to focus, but everything in its divine timing. Later, a situation came and I was shown exactly what it was. It was a guidance system that is utilized by star beings, because star beings don't have an egoic mind, just like the archangels and other beings, interdimensional beings, don't have an egoic mind. So they're not limited to the belief of linear time or any of these things. And so they use a guidance system that wherever you focus, there you are. We've done that as children. I myself I remember myself in 3rd and 4th grade listening to the teacher talk, but then suddenly looking out the window, daydreaming as they would call it, and suddenly being somewhere else. That is how what the star beings relay to me as which is called vibrational transference. You know, I work today with folks like those who are nonverbal and that have either autism or Down syndrome or other things like this. I work with them on a vibrational communication level. What many would call telepathy, but telepathy by definition is an exchange of thoughts in the mind, and that's not what occurs. It is this place beyond the mind, this vibrational exchange. Just like if you were to smell honeysuckle during the summer rain, you don't have to see it. Just by the smell, you have that feeling of, oh, it's warm, it's summertime, that beautiful smell of honeysuckle. It's like that. Just like the sound of the flowing river, and even a fast-moving river that's running over rocks. Just that sound, due to its vibrational frequency, for many can put us to sleep. For me, I'm from rural Kentucky, and the sound of a soft rain on a tin roof at night, it's literally like a lullaby. So the vibrational communication that we hold, in the same way, the star beings do something known as vibrational transference. And there is a transference capacitor. And that transference capacitor is many spherical layers. But what humans can possibly see of that is this thin layer that you might know as the flying saucer or the ship or things like that. But there are many, many layers outside of that the physical eyes are not capable of seeing, because the mind itself is not capable of conceiving what is present there vibrationally. So when we come into this awareness, I utilize the guidance system to take people back to the moments that an event occurred, where the event was seen, because that's the awareness that was held at that moment, that it was seen as traumatic, or it was seen as however it was seen by the mind. But we then flip the coin during that session and allow them to see. Their soul comes to me and guides me questions to ask, aspects of the event that I know nothing about in my mind or in my awareness. They haven't told me, but aspects: who was there? How old were you? What was occurring? What were the elements present in that situation? And in that, we together find the real purpose of the event and find the wisdom in it and the beauty in it. And when that happens, just like happened for me with the birth through the mother whale, all of the beliefs, all of the things fall away. That's the fast-tracking aspect to it. It's not an avoidance, because we go there. But the important thing is I ask them, let that, for example, 3-year-old, 7-year-old, 11-year-old, 9-year-old, whatever point in the journey it was, let the 9-year-old tell that story. And then they'll go with the mind, oh, my adult person is, big words. It's like, no. Let's try and let go of that. Because that child in you saw it more through the eyes of the soul than what the adult does. Let the 9-year-old tell the story. And in that is revealed the reality that was there to be received. The reality of the wisdom held in the moment. And in that, all things are realigned. And in that realignment with the soul, none of what isn't in alignment with the soul can stay. It will leave. Trauma, grief, anger, resentment, shame, guilt, they fall away because they are not vibrationally aligned with the soul. So, I thank you for giving me this opportunity. If anyone would like to contact me, they can do so through my email address, which is alignmentlife11@gmail.com. And by the time this is posted, my website will be up displaying not only the images of the artwork that I receive as messages to humanity, but also all of the other services and things, and that will be at www.synthesis111.com. So contact me. I would love to connect with you. I would love to hear your story of your journey. And remember, the soul sees it all happening now. There is no past or future. Those are just concepts of the mind. The soul sees it happening now, and therefore it can be healed now. And we can choose through free will to let go. Thank you.
How is this story meaningful to you? If you're watching on YouTube, tell us in the comments. If you're listening to the podcast, leave a review and tell us there. If you or someone you know have a similar kind of story, please also leave that in the comments or send us a message at our website. Maybe we'll feature you. Visit NDE.com. Be blessed and a blessing, my friends.